Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 11/4/2024 to 11/8/2024. We had a pretty busy week here with the election, FOMC. So what we're going to do is always just kind of go through the flow that came in for the week, and some of this was public, some of this was Discord only, but this is all the flow that was posted. And again, as always, for transparency purposes, I like to show that everything is posted in here as well. Everything's posted, no edits. I don't like to edit my stuff because it's not 100% transparent when you do that. But again, all the flow for this week posted in here. Some other sections which we don't track, but just wanted to show that the flow that we're going over is actually posted in there. And we're going to go over the full range of the flow. So with the flow, we're going to look at the entry of the whale to the max return of the contract for the week. So I'm just doing the intra-week movement. I know some of these contracts are a little further out. We have some 70 days expirations, 105 days. Still going to cover them on a weekly time frame here. So we'll kind of look at the flow alert, look at the net premium, and kind of look at the raw flow and just go by that. So let's get started here and kind of get through this as quick as possible, but informative enough for everybody. So first up on Monday, we had Nike, the 11/8/77 puts. Let's take a peek here. So here's our flow, and sometimes going back and clicking at the flow, it might not show 100% of the time, but we'll kind of take a peek. But this is a good example right here of a whale entering and exiting here. So here's our whale on the 4th. We had 2,500 contracts here at 0.88 for a fill. This whale actually exited today at 126, or actually yesterday, Thursday, at 126 per contract. These did hit a high of 198. Actually, I think they hit a little higher here. 225 here on the 6th, actually. So those running from 0.89 to 225. So that's 152% on those. And let's take a peek at the raw flow here. So this is kind of what I'm saying here. Sometimes it's not going to show fully just because it's a little older trade, but we'll have some that show. But the things I like to look at are the IV, the spot price. So kind of just looking at what we have right here. A little wider bid ask. That spot being filled at the ask side with good size and good premium there. And let's look at the net premium here. So when these came in on the 4th, here, where's my 4th? So here's the 4th. You can see we had that big spike in net put premium, and we had a big spike in net put premium on the 5th also. So if you were swinging that, you can see that big drop in Nike here after that came in. Looks like they're selling their puts right there. You can see them turning bid side, so collecting profit. But again, good example here. You can see that big whale entry here on the green candle and that bid side exit. And actually, let's take a peek at the bid side exit. Where did they roll these? Oh, yep, they rolled these actually. Interesting. So they closed those and they rolled their puts. Interesting. Cool. So that was our Nike, the 11/8/77 puts, ran from 0.89 to 225, 152% top end return there. And again, that whale exited at 126, which we can see here. And just kind of doing a visual of that, you can see it's about the same size. Math that way kind of dictates their closing. You can always check that open interest in the morning on Monday. All right. Moving on now, we have GLD. And taking a peek at the flow here. Bump this back. So here's our whale entry, and looks like they're just cutting now for some small profits, but here's our first entry here. You can see that 10,000 contracts traded on the 4th, majority of that carrying over. Whale still in, could be taking some profits today. Let's take a peek at the flow. So here's a good example of what I'm looking for. So on GLD, you can see that IV increasing as the flow comes in, and the time here, I'm Central Standard Time, so it might look a little different on your end if you're different time zone, but here's our IV. Again, see that IV increasing on the way up. You can see that spot price kind of increasing a little bit there, but again, being filled at that ask side, that sticks out to me, and can see the good size, good premium here. And here's our movement. So here's our initial entry at 210. These hit a high of 531 on 11.6. So here's our 11.6. Can see 531 there. And looks like the whale's starting to take some profits here at about 243 when their entry was 210. This is why I say you should always be adjusting up stops when you're trading. You should always have your own risk plan going in here, because these contracts hit from that 210 to 531. That's 152%. This whale let that drop all the way down here, and now they're just starting to cut at 243. This is why you should always have a plan going in. You should have your own plan. You can use flow to find unusual trades and do all that, but you should, again, always be managing your risk and managing your trade, and not just, I don't follow the whales 100%. Use these as guides to find trades, and can always just adjust stops up, which is, if you're up 152%, you should be taking profits or adjusting stops up. But coming over to the net premium, so on the 4th, again, not seeing a lot here, and again, this was before the election, but you can see that huge drop the next day based off the election results. So the GLD is running from 210 to 531, 152.86% on those. Up next, we had UVXY. So again, another one where I like the idea of adjusting up stops. Here's our entry. Whale entered these at 315, 316. Again, you can see that IV jump as the large size of contracts come in here. A little wider bid ask here. And again, see that this is it's about 12 minutes off, but good size, good premium. Could assume this whale's maybe adding to this. Can't 100% say, but we did have another spike in that IV. But again, when the initial whale came in, spike in that IV, ask side fills. You can see that with the spot there. Good size, good premium. And these contracts running 316 on the 4th. These hit 420 on the 4th, a little before close. And with the election, the idea would be to probably manage risk and take profits if you can. So these getting just a tick over 30%, so 315 to 420 on those, 33%. Again, looks like that whale's kind of still in here, but they're down. So again, this is why I say always adjust stops and have a plan. If you see profits, there's nothing wrong with taking profits. If I see profits same day, I like to close. If I can see 33% profits in a day, I'm going to close that. I'm not going to risk much, or I'm going to take profits off the table and leave a couple runners. All right, so moving on now, we had ABBV. So our entry on these 365. Here's our entry 365. Saw some ads here as well, but let's take a peek. So again, as that flow came in, kind of see that IV. Actually, let me bump this out a little bit. So again, that IV, little wider spread here. Again, seeing that spot get filled there at the ask. The spot is just the fill of the contracts. See that IV staying up, not really seeing a drop at all in that at all. So, again, plain sight, this looks like a buy to me. But interesting because we get some more flow here after. And you look at this, and you can see it's a repeated hits descending fill, but it's on the ask side again. That IV drops from that original. So digging a little deeper here. So these were on the 4th still. So here's our 4th. We had, let's see, 800, or the 5th, sorry. So 5th, we had about 1,300 contracts traded there. Actually, hold on, okay, so that was the 4th. This is our, I did have it for the 4th, okay. So it looks like they sold these for almost at $375 the next day. So these whales sold that for, let's see, this was barely above break even, but we did have a nice run into close here. So you see that 445 there on the, where am I here? Okay, here. It's a Friday. I will blame it on that. But so 445 on the 5th. So we opened up at that high on the 5th. Okay. So those only hitting, so 445, those just hitting a little above 20%, 21%. Looks like they cut at 375 though from that 365. You can see that a lot of that volume didn't, or a good chunk of that volume carried over. Interesting, they probably got passed off onto somebody else because we didn't see a big add into that open interest. Actually, my math is just off. Looks like this whale's averaging down. So, moving on here, we'll get away from the bad, confusing one there. So we're now looking at the 5th. So we had the 11.8, 577.5 calls. These expire today. Here's our whale entry at 417-ish, 423. Let's pull that up. So again, can see that spike in that IV when that flow comes in. Ask side fills all the way up. Good sign of a buy. 423 here, you can see they're running at, hit a high of 2086 today. Those are up about a little bit over 400%, 400.24%. Those are in the money right now. SPY running at 598, about $20 in the money. Good little trade there, but it looks like that whale probably took some off the table here at 579, 554, probably 491. And again, this was after the election. Take a peek at that net premium for the last 7 days. Again, just lots of bullish ask side call volume coming in here. Good call size. LPLA, this was a good one this week. This one gapped up the next day. Here's our original entry, 185. It's hit a high of 1521 yesterday on the 7th. Or actually, they hit on the 6th. They hit 1900. So those running from that 194, 185, I have 194 marked here, to $19 per contract for a high, 879%. Good trade there for anybody that caught that because that gapped up massively. And looking at the net premium, back from the 5th again, not seeing a lot of put volume, net put premium volume here. Big spike in that net call premium. Good volume there too. And you can see we big spike that day, then we gapped up the next day. Looking at that raw flow. Maybe if my computer wants to cooperate. So again, bigger spread on this one. I don't like these bigger spreads usually, but that spread kind of did calm down a little bit towards the end. It's not going to show it, but we'll look at this. So again, that IV staying up the entire time, good size, good volume, and then had a small little break with some bid action. Then we had the big whale come in here, 41.81. That IV spiked to that, and the fill was a little bit more towards the middle there, I'd say. But again, compared to the fill that came in here, this is where time in the market you can kind of see this is unusual. 194 coming in right above that last big fill. Still a wider spread if you didn't take this, not a big deal, but again, these running from 194 to 19 per contract. That's 879% on that. So again, whale entry way down here. You can see that mark with that average fill. And here we are up here at 19 on the 6th. And you can see all that down here. This next one made a nice little intraday move. NEP. Again, whale looks like they're still in, but these contracts being filled at 106, hitting a high of 125 the same day. That's 17%. If you were waiting on anything with the election or anything, again, 17%. I personally like 15% and above. That's anything below 15%. I like to count as a loss usually, loss or not a big move, but still 15% should be adjusting up stops. Our whale here, and at the time when these came in, so you can see that 35.99 here. We do kind of drop here, but that spread, again, you're looking at that spread right away. That's a bigger spread there, and they're being filled with the ask. That's unusual to me. Ascending fill just means that spot price is going up, which we can see here. And that's one thing that stuck out on this one, that spot price increasing. Spot price still increasing all the way up here. Can see that still coming up. That to me would look like a buy, and to most flow readers this would scream buy as well too. And that IV, sometimes I'll outweigh the bid ask with the IV. Bid ask to me is a little more important than looking at the IV. The IV is typically the second thing I look at, but it just depends kind of on what it is too. But usually I'll take a quick peek at the IV just to make sure it's not dropping big and pop over and look at that bid ask and that spot fill. If the bid ask is bigger, I usually start at the bid ask and look at the IV then. But this one, again, did make a nice little intraday move here up to that 125, 106, to $1.25. That's 17%, 17.92%. Good little trade there. Again, looks like that whale's down though, and most of that volume carrying over, so they're still in, but down a little bit again. And 70 days to expiration. This is where I was talking about that. Harder to kind of sometimes do some of these longer dated plays in a weekly intraday basis, but again, do what you want with this information. That whale looks to still be in. Up next we have Tesla 11.15 282 5 calls. Monster here because these ran from 245 in here. Where's my 245? Okay, we'll say 259. It's not going to make a big difference because Tesla ended up hitting a rocket, and this was after the election. You can see these are running at $45 a contract now from that entry of 259. That's 1,637.45% on those. That's a big return. Tesla has been massively up the last since the election. I mean, you see that net call premium just massively up there. That's, I mean, you can't get much more bullish than that. But another 10% day, it looks like, for Tesla today. 9%, sorry. So contracts making a good move there. SMCI, our fill was 175. These hit a high of, why is it not 206 on the 6th? 206, why is it being goofy like that? Well, we'll go with the 190 here. Say 191, 199. So the SMCI is 175 to 199, 13.71%. Curious why it's saying I had a high of 206, but I don't see the fill in here. A little under 15%, but again, 13%, and a lot going on with SMCI right now. 105 days expiration. And that net premium on this one is actually pretty wild. Let's actually, I want to go back 14 days on this one. That huge spike in net put premium here. I mean, this is very bearish. Have obviously some net call premium. There's going to be some dip buyers, short coverings. But again, longer time frame here, 105 days. SMCI down about 2.9% today, almost 3%. But those contracts running from that 175 to 199, 13.71%. Next up, we have HIMS, the 117.20 puts. Again, longer expiration, but HIMS making a good move down today. And it actually looks like that whale's taking their profits here, some small profits after big dip in theirs. But here's our initial entry at 235. These hitting a high of 260 the same day, but we're going to go with 250 today. So 250, this whale closed their contracts at 6%. Something I wouldn't like to do, especially after seeing your contracts fill at 235 and dipping all the way down here to that 133. That's a pretty big dip there to hold through. But this is a good example of you can always go based off the whale's flow. You don't have to take their exact contract and that exact fill. You can wait for if you're a good charter, this is a good time where I'd like to put in a support or resistance line, and you can kind of, hey, I see resistance here and there's a big whale on the puts. I'm going to wait for this level and I'll grab these expirations with that put. So then that helps you get discounted entries as well. But again, whale kind of only closing these out for 6.38%, unless these are bid size that they're just averaging down on. We'll have to see that open interest on Monday. And again, looking at that net premium, big spike in that net put premium today, and actually a big spike on before earnings there on the 5th. Actually, earnings was last week, I believe. So this was a big spike after earnings. Don't have the earnings date in front of me. But again, so those only hitting about 6.38% from that whale's entry. LVS. So we're on to the 6th. And again, another nice example here of a whale closing their position. Here's our entry at 48. These hit a high of 136 here, 142 on the 7th, 184% on those. Seeing some bid side action here at 123 today. Looks like they're closing those out. They expire today anyways. So whale actually holding those from 0.50 to $1.23, so 100%, 120%-ish. But contracts maxing out at that 142. Let's look at that net premium. Bullish, bullish. Good call volume there too. And Seeing that drop yesterday after the gap up there, probably taking profits. But you can see that bid side candle yesterday on Thursday, closing out their contracts with theta being aggressive today. And good idea because it dropped 2.14% today. Let's look at the flow again. Coming down here. So here's our flow. Again, right before the whale came in, big jump in that IV. Wider spread right away. You can see this coming up same time. Wide spread, that spot being filled at the ask. IV staying up. Spread kind of gets a little wider here, but again, small drop in that IV there, but still, again, that ask side fill kind of outweighs that to me there. When you see that big size with that ask side spot fill, good sign that these are a buy. And again, running up from that entry, you can see the big green candle here. That's their entry. Up next, let's see Amazon. And I'm going to kind of, since we got through the big part there, if there's something interesting, I'll stop and look. But we're just going to kind of look at them now. Amazon, our entry was 340 on these. Where's my 340? 311. Well, I had 340 on here. Let's see. We'll say 340. So entry was in here, obviously hitting a high of 765 on the 7th, 125% on those. Let's see if I can just pull this back quick. Again, big spike on the 6th when these came in that call premium. Big run up into the afternoon, kind of chopping up here high. Intel, this was another good one. Your whale entry right here at 22, hitting a high of 76, 75, 245% on those. Flow 48.89, IV staying up. Ask side spot fills on a little tighter spread. Again, looks like a buy. Net premium. Saw a lot of ask side net call premium there. UAL. So this was an interesting one because this whale looks like they closed on the same day. So the 6th. Here's the 6th. And I have these filled at 390. So here's our whale entry here, 390, 395. Looks like they might have took some profits off the table here at about 442. These did hit 450 same day. This ran into close. Those contracts running 390 to that 457, 17%, 17.18% there. Looks like they're kind of closing the rest of whatever else they might have here at 365 for a little loss. Again, good example why you should always be adjusting up stops. And flow started to get kind of messy here towards the end of the day with that ask side and bid side candle here. But you can see we had a lot of volume here, only about 5,000 contracts carrying over. So a lot of stuff going on in there. I don't like it when it starts to get messy like that. But, and again, 42 days on these left. Keep that in mind as well. UAL back up a little bit today, but contracts running that 390 to 457, 17.18% on those. And this one, the LRCX, we still have 14 days on those, but as of right now, these would be a loss. 137 here, and kind of making its way back down a little bit today, but 137, hitting a high of, where do I got here? 137, only 147, so you don't count that. But 105, they're back at 105 today, down about 23% with 14 days on those, but making its way back down. Next, had Snap, the 117.13 calls, 70 days on those. Here's your whale entry yesterday on the 7th. So whale entry 77 hit a high actually of 94 today, but unless it hit right at open, must have been an odds bet. We'll go with that 90. So 78 to 90, a little over 15%, 15.38%. Nice compound win. Again, 70 days on those. Probably looking more long term. Snap down today a little bit. IONQ up next. Again, a little wider spread here. And premiums are going to look different here because I save the specific contract. It's not the full trade. So when we look at that, this only shows 5,000, but that's because I clicked on that. This is the full thing there, 116,000 on there actually. So these filling at 0.42, hitting a high of 137 today, 226% on those. Big jump today, 11.49, 50% there. Nike, these ones are down, which could be a sell on these. Let's take a peek at these. 30.57, and can see that IV staying up there. And it's a spot fill on that ask side. So you never know, though. This is why you should always be having that risk management just in case something like this happens. I mean, this would look like a buy to anybody here as well. But contracts, they fill them at 68. They're sitting at about 32 right now. Hit a low of 32. What did we hit on the 7th? 74. They hit a high of 74. That's, yeah, not a good return. But yeah, this one I would consider a loss right now. This whale's down 52%. I would not let these get down that much, especially on something that expires next week because Theta is going to be aggressive over the weekend. So we had Rio up next. This gap down today. Here is our initial entry at 113. Contracts hitting 360 today. 213% on those. Looks like they fully exited here about that 330, 310-ish area. You can see that mid-side candle and this bid side. You put that bid side up here, it's going to equal that. Can verify that open interest in the morning. It's probably going to change. And this may be a multi-leg because they might be rolling these actually. Yep, they are rolling those puts. So easy enough here. Let's back this out. So that's your original entry here. And they are closing those and opening these. So that is a roll. They didn't fully close that. And real down 5% on the day. And we had Hims, another one that gapped down today. So we had a bunch of ask side hits here at that 185-ish average. Hitting 295 today. Seeing bid side, ask side here. They're probably closing these at about 261, 277. Again, hitting a high of 295. 59% on those. And PLTR, which again, a little longer term here, but 12.6, 65 call, getting filled today at 74. They're running at 92 right now. So these are up over 24% right now, 24.32%. Nice, another day for Palantir. But that is all I have for this week for the flow recap video. If you have questions, if you want to try unusual whales at a discounted entry, feel free to use the code that will be in the description. If you're interested in joining Stock Hub, these are all posted in there every week. Feel free to use the link in the description as well. Have a great weekend, everyone.